Hi class, I hope you are all doing well. And while we are still on a holiday break, I hope you are also sparing some of your time to study your lessons. So we're only a few days away from semester's end, and so I am hoping that you will all do well on your final exam. So in this video, I'll be presenting the last topic for this subject, which is about contract. So there will be two videos for this topic. This is the part one, and part two will cover the topic on defective contract. So let's start and let's begin by defining first what is a contract. And Article 1305 of the Civil Code provides for its legal definition. And it says that a contract is a meeting of minds between two persons whereby one binds himself with respect to the other to give something or to render some service. So as stated in this provision, the definition of contract lays stress on the meeting of minds of the contracting parties. And this was also mentioned sa ating previous meeting, right? So this meeting of the minds speak of the intent of the parties in entering into the contract, respecting the subject matter and the consideration thereof. So there can be no contract in the absence of the element of agreement. So kailan ba natin masasabi na the contracting parties reach the agreement? O that is kapag merong certain offer and kapag in-accept yun ng kabilang party. So meaning to say, both parties gave their consent. So with that, we could say that consent is the essence of a contract. But of course, there are other essential requisites that must be present para magkaroon tayo ng valid contract. So as a general rule, it is not necessary that a contract must be in writing. Okay? Except to those required by law like donation. So wala naman talagang um, prescribed na form, no? But later on, i-discuss natin yan sa forms of contract. Pero ang general rule lang, hindi naman necessary na kailangan contract must be in writing. Except doon sa mga nire-require, no? Merong mga express provision of the law na nire-require that such contract has to be in writing. Kaya a good example nga is yung donation of like real property. Okay? So, since tapos na tayo sa obligation, although contract is one of the sources of obligation, take note that an obligation may exist without a contract, right? Kasi nga, isa lang naman si contract sa mga sources of obligation. So, meaning to say, kahit walang contract, pwede pa rin mag-arise ang obligation. So again, meron pa tayong other sources. We have law, we have quasi-contract, delict, and quasi-delict. But there can be no contract if there is no obligation. So let me repeat that. An obligation may exist without a contract, but there can be no contract if there is no obligation. So kailangan yung contract talagang nakapaloob doon, no? O meron talagang obligation yung dalawang parties dun sa contract that has to be fulfilled. Kung walang obligation, then that is not a contract. Okay? So all contracts are agreements, but not all agreements are contract. So don't be confused. An agreement can only be considered as a contract if all the essential requisites of a contract is present. So yung basis natin para masabi natin na there is a valid contract, ang ating basis is kailangan lahat ng essential requisites of a contract is present para masabi natin na that kind of agreement is also a contract or falls under the category of a contract. Okay, so yun yung dapat nating tingnan. Pag present lahat ng requisites, then that agreement is considered as or may be considered as a contract. So, but before we go there, dun sa mga essential requisites, let us first determine the characteristics of contracts. Yeah. So there are 4 characteristics of contracts. Number one is the obligatory force of contract. So I've already mentioned before that obligations arising from contracts have the force of law between the parties. So it has the force of law. Kaya nga kapag halimbawang merong isang party na hindi nag-fulfill ng obligation na nakastipulate doon sa contract, merong mga remedy na pwedeng i-grant sa kanya or pwede siyang mag-seek ng remedy sa court. Because again, contracts have the force of law between the parties and therefore it should be complied with in good faith. So next is the autonomy of contracts. So when we say autonomy of contracts, it means that the contracting parties may establish such stipulations, clauses, terms and conditions, provided they are not contrary to law, morals, good customs, public order, or public policy. So, dito pumapasok yung freedom to contract. So, pwede silang mag-stipulate ng kahit anong terms and conditions, but again, there is no such thing as absolute freedom. So, merong limitation yung kanilang autonomy, 'di ba? And that is, kailangan yung mga stipulations nila dun sa contract, hindi siya dapat contrary to law, morals, good customs, public order, or public policy. Otherwise, the contract will be rendered void, okay? Or invalid siya. Number 3 is the mutuality of contract. So, contract must bind both contracting parties and the validity or compliance cannot be left to the will of one of them. So, if you can still recall, meron tayong meron akong inassign na key sa inyo, di ba, na dinigest nyo siya na regarding this mutuality of contract. So if you can remember the case of GF Equity versus Valenzuela. So in-explain dun sa case na yon ng court yung essence of mutuality of contracts. Pero sige, let's have another example aside from that case para lang ma-recall ninyo itong principle of mutuality of contracts. So for example, si A agrees to sell his car to B and B agrees to pay 1 million pesos. Okay? So, merong meeting of mind, di ba, na si A, binibenta niya kay B yung car niya, si B naman, nag-agree siya na bilhin yung car for 1 million pesos. So, valid yung contract, right? Kasi na-meet yung essential requisites. So, valid yung object, merong consent and consideration. So, if there is a stipulation, no, doon sa kanilang agreement, okay, saying na si B ay wala siyang right to negate the decision of A, like si A, meron siyang parang yung agreement nila na yon, binibigyan ng right si A na i-adjust. Meron siyang right na i-adjust yung price ng car, for example. And then si B, wala siyang right to oppose or to negate the decision of A. So in that case, lumalabas na si A, anytime, pwede niyang itaas yung price, di ba, ng car. But that stipulation violates the mutuality of contracts. Because again, sabi nga sa mutuality of contracts, the validity or compliance cannot be left to the will of one of them. So, since hindi valid yung stipulation na yon, hindi siya pwedeng mag-take effect. And just like sa case ni Valenzuela, di ba, nagkaroon ng application yung stipulation kahit na hindi siya valid. So meaning to say, na-execute, 'di ba? And since valid naman yung contract, 'di ba? Kasi lahat ng essential elements of the contract are present, so si Valenzuela nakapag-claim siya ng damages. Okay? So don't be confused. Again, yung contract valid siya except for that particular stipulation that violates the mutuality of the contract. So to reiterate, the validity or compliance cannot be left to the will of one of them. Yun yung ibig sabihin ng mutuality of contracts. However, the determination of the performance can be left to the will of the third person. So, ibig sabihin, pwedeng magkaroon ng involvement si third person. Okay? Okay. Example, si A, binenta niya yung land niya kay B. And both of them, si A at si B, nag-agree sila na si C yung magde-determine ng reasonable price of the land. So that is allowed kasi si C, third person siya. So ang sinasabi lang naman sa mutuality of contracts, yung validity and compliance cannot be left to the will of one of them. So, hindi naman kasama si C doon sa, hindi siya part ng contract talaga. Hindi siya kasama sa contracting parties. Kasi nga, third person siya. So, parang yung role lang ni C is to determine the reasonable price of the land. And again, this is allowed because sinasabi sa civil code that the determination of the performance can be left to the will of the third person. But, take note na yung decision ni third person. Okay, for example, si C, yung third person, finix niya yung price ng land sa 1 million pesos. Okay, so magiging binding lang yung decision na yon ni third person kay A tsaka kay B after such decision is made known to the contracting parties. That is according to Article 1309 of the Civil Code. So meaning, kapag hindi niya na-inform si A at saka si B, or isa lang kay A and B yung nasabihan niya, the decision of the third person will not be binding. Kasi the requirement of the law, magiging binding lang yung decision after the decision is made known to the contracting parties. So, kasi baka mamaya, um, si A tsaka si third person magkaroon ng connivance, 'di ba? So hindi pwedeng sabihin ni A na for example, Phoenix ni third person sa 1 million pesos yung price of the land. Tapos in-inform niya si A lang na, oh, i-fix natin sa um, 1 million pesos. Tapos hindi niya in-inform si B. So ngayon, ito na yung contract, 'di ba, na nakalagay na dun yung price na 1 million pesos. So, hindi pwedeng sabihin ni A kay B, if ever na i-contest ni B or i-oppose niya, hindi pwedeng sabihin ni A na, valid to. Kasi hindi naman natin na-violate yung mutuality of contracts. Kasi hindi naman ako yung nag-determine nito. 'Di ba? Ang nag-determine naman nito is yung reasonable price ICC, which is a third person. So, according to Civil Code, pwede to. Okay. Pero, dahil nga hindi na-meet yung requirement na kailangan para maging binding, alam nilang dalawa. So, still, that could be a violation pa rin of mutuality of contracts. So, that's the requirement under Article 1309 para maging binding yung decision ni third person. Now, if ever naman na na-inform si A at si B na pinifix ni third person sa 1 million pesos yung price of the land, hindi naman din ibig sabihin or hindi absolute na oblige si A at saka si B na, sundin kung ano yung naging desisyon ni third person. So, yung determination na yon ni third person ng price of the land shall not be obligatory if it is evidently inequitable or meaning unjust yung pagkakasit. Kasi yun nga, baka mamaya nag-act si third person in bad faith or merong connivance with A, 'di ba? So kung unjust yung determination ni third person, okay? So pwedeng mag-intervene yung court and the court shall be the one to decide what is equitable under the circumstances. So hindi rin naman absolute na kung ano yung decision ni third person is obliged na kaagad si A at saka si B na kumbaga um, sundin kung ano yung naging decision ni third person. So depende yon sa circumstances. Again, kapag evidently inequitable siya, pwedeng mag-intervene yung court. And the court will be the one to decide what is equitable under the circumstances. So that is for the mutuality of contracts. Number 4 is the relativity of contract. So dito, it talks about or it means kung kanino lang effective yung contract. Okay? So contracts take effect only between the parties, no? Primarily between the parties, yan, kung sino yung nag-entered into contract. Pero kasama din dyan yung assigns nila at saka yung heirs nila. Okay? So, contracts take effect only between the parties, their assigns, and heirs, except in case where the rights and obligations arising from the contract are not transmissible by their nature or by stipulation or by provision of law. So, kung matatandaan nyo dun sa mga dati nating example, di ba? So kung halimbawa si A, may utang siyang 1 million kay B, so the contract will take effect between A and B. Pero kung later on si A, yung debtor, namatay siya before making the payment, so yung mga heirs ni A is magiging matatransmit sa kanila yung obligation ni A na bayaran yung 1 million pesos. Same with B. Kung halimbawang namatay si B, the creditor, bago niya ma-receive yung payment, so yung mga heirs or assigns ni creditor ay merong right to claim, okay, doon sa or to receive yung payment ni debtor. Okay? So, yun yung sa relativity of contracts. Ang exception lang kapag meron silang sa stipulation nila nakalagay doon na hindi transmissible yung rights and obligations, or kung merong batas na nagsasabi na itong mga klase ng rights and obligations na to is hindi transmissible, or for example by their nature. So example, yung sa partnership, 'di ba? So kung halimbawang yung isang partner namatay siya, hindi matatransfer yung according to law of partnership, hindi matatransfer yung mga rights na meron itong si partner na namatay, halimbawa dun sa anak niya, na yung anak niya is automatic magiging partner at i-assume niya yung posisyon nung tatay niya, which is partner doon, original partner doon sa partnership. So, hindi pwede yon. Okay? So, yun. Specifically, yung law yung nagsasabi na hindi nagtatransmit yung rights ng namatay na partner doon sa kanyang mga heirs. Or hindi pwedeng i-assume ni heir yung position at magiging automatic partner siya doon sa partnership niya. So, that is one of the examples. Okay? So, these are the characteristics of contracts. Now, let's continue to the stages of contract. And as you can see in the slide, there are 3 stages. First is the negotiation or preparation. So, usually, contract begins when the prospective contracting parties manifest their interest in the contract. So, dito sa negotiation or preparation, this is the bargaining point. Yan yung mag-o-offer, and then pwedeng mag-bargain si buyer kung okay na ba sa kanya yung purchase price or hindi. So lahat yun, part yun ng negotiation or preparation stage. So after that, if mag-agree na sila sa essential elements of the contract, meaning to say, yung offer that is certain is in-accept na, okay, nagkaroon na ng absolute acceptance, then that will be the perfection stage or the birth of the contract. So once na nag-agree na sila dun sa essential elements of the contract, 'di ba, may consent na, and then valid naman yung object and consideration, then perfection stage na yun. So there is already a perfected contract. And then sa consummation, ito yung last stage, and it occurs when the parties fulfill or perform the terms agreed upon in the contract. So ito yung pinaka like culminating stage na wherein the obligation will be extinguished. So for example, on December 1, si A, nag-offer siya to sell his car to B for 1 million pesos. So yan, preparation period yan. And then, 2 days after, si B nag-counter offer siya to buy it for 800,000 pesos. Is still on the negotiation or preparation stage. So, once na mag-agree na si A, okay, in-accept niya na okay, sige, okay na yung 800,000 pesos. So, pumayag na si A na ibenta yung car kay B for 800,000 pesos, and then nag-agree din naman si B na babayaran niya yung 800,000 pesos, then that is the perfection stage. So once na i-deliver na ni A yung car kay B at si B nabayaran niya na yung 800,000 pesos, then that's the consummation stage. So that's for the stages of contract. Now let's proceed with the essential requisites of contract. So this is very important. And Article 1318 of the Civil Code provides that there is no contract and unless the following requisites concur. So take note na kailangan present tong lahat. Hindi pwede na yung 1 lang or yung 2 or yung 3 lang. So dapat lahat to. Okay, so number 1, consent of the contracting parties. So again, when you say consent, it refers to the meeting of minds, 'di ba? So, magbibigay ka lang naman ng consent kung okay sa'yo yung offer at sa kabilang party naman kung okay yung price, 'di ba? So, this is the meeting of the offer and the acceptance upon the thing and the cause which are to constitute the contract. So again, para masabi natin na na-satisfy itong requisite ng consent, kailangan the offer must be certain and the acceptance should be absolute. Example, si A, nag-offer siya na ibenta yung car niya kay B for 1 million pesos. So si B, nagko-contemplate pa siya kung i-accept niya ba yung offer. So, bago pa i-accept ni B yung offer, si A, winidraw niya yung offer. Question, is the withdrawal valid? The answer is yes. So, pwede pang i-withdraw ni A yung kanyang offer kasi wala pa namang consent na nagtitake place, 'di ba? So, hindi pa perfected yung contract. So, therefore, hindi pa siya obliged na ah, i-deliver yung car or hindi pa nagkaroon ng perfection of contract in that scenario. So, pwede pa na i-withdraw ni A yung kanyang offer prior to the acceptance of B. Okay? Another example. So, si A, this time naman si A, siya naman yung nag-offer kay B na bibilhan niya yung sasakyan ni B for 800,000 pesos. Sabi ni A, B, gusto ko sanang bilhin yung car mo for 800,000 pesos. Baka gusto mong ibenta sa akin. So, si B naman, nag-counter offer siya. Sabi niya, baka pwede mong gawin 1 million pesos kasi bago pa naman tong sasakyan, halos hindi ko pa nagagamit. Kaya lang, hindi afford ni A yung 1 million pesos. So, sabi niya, sige, alis na lang siya. Umalis na lang siya. And then suddenly, itong si B, nag-change yung mind niya. Sabi niya, o sige, okay na, willing na ako na ibenta yung car ko for 800,000 pesos. So, question, pwede bang i-refuse ni A yung car or meron na bang perfected contract doon since pumayag na si B doon sa offer ni A na bibili niya yung car for 800,000 pesos? The answer is no, wala pang perfected contract. So, therefore, si A, pwede niya pang i-refuse. Okay? Pwede niya pang hindi bilhin yung sasakyan. Okay, bakit? Kasi nga wala pa namang absolute acceptance na nangyari. Nung time na nag-offer si A, na bibilhin niya yung sasakyan ni B for 800,000 pesos and yung naging response ni B is nag-counter offer siya na kung pwede bang 1 million, yung counter offer niya na yon, it implies rejection of the offer. That's why there is no absolute acceptance yet in that scenario. So, dahil parang ang nangyari, nagpalit sila ng posisyon, di ba? Nung una si A yung nag-offer. Pero nung nag-counter offer si B ng 1 million at hindi kaya ni A, sa sumunod na scenario, si B na yung nag-o-offer na kay A na bilhin yung sasakyan niya for 800,000 pesos. So, dahil hindi pa naman perfected yung contract, parang yung unang um, negotiation nila, nag-fail na yon. So, ito ngayon yung second negotiation na si B na yung nag-o-offer ng car niya for 800,000 pesos. So, in this case, kung hindi i-accept ni B, si A, meron siyang option to either accept or reject the offer of B. Okay, so wala pang perfected contract, therefore wala pang consent in that particular scenario. So when we talk about consent, it is important to remember that there should be an offer which is certain and the absolute acceptance. Diba? Kasi kailangan may meeting of minds. Diba? Pag pinag-usapan natin yung consent, um, yung kanyang criteria dyan or yung element na meron siya dyan is the meeting of minds. So without offer and acceptance, there could be no meeting of minds or consent. Okay? Ayan, another example dito sa consent, diba? So, dagdagan pa natin yung scenario. Okay, so halimbawa, si A, nag-offer siya to sell his car for 1 million pesos to B on December 1. And then, 2 days after, Si B, nag-decide siya na sabi niya, i-accept niya yung offer. Okay? So, ang ginawa ni B, nagpadala siya ng letter, okay, manifesting na ina-accept niya yung offer ni A na 1 million pesos. Okay? Bibili niya yung sasakyan ni A for 1 million pesos. Kaya lang, bago pa ma-receive ni A yung acceptance letter ni B, si A namatay. Okay? Question, meron bang perfection doon? The answer is no. Wala pang consent. No perfection of contract pa. Kasi nga, hindi pa naman na-communicate kay A yung acceptance ni B. So therefore, wala pang obligation si A na ibenta yung car talaga kay A or i-deliver yung car kay B. So hindi pwedeng i-compel ni B si A na, ay hindi, nag-accept na ako eh. So dapat ibenta na yan sa akin. Kasi nga, hindi naman na-receive ni A yung acceptance letter niya. Okay, go. Kumbaga namatay na siya bago niya pa ma-receive yung acceptance. So in that scenario, there is no consent yet and there is no perfected contract. Okay? So aside from the offer and acceptance for consent to concur, it is also necessary that the parties are capable of entering into a contract or has the legal capacity to give consent. Okay, so Civil Code enumerates those who are incapacitated to give consent. So meaning to say, merong mga persons na they don't have legal capacity to give consent or to enter into a contract, okay? Representing themselves talaga. Okay? Yung sila talaga yung mismo mag-enter into contract. So, among them is yung mga unemancipated minors. So, when we say unemancipated minors, these are the persons who have not yet reached the age of majority, which is 18 years old sa atin, and are still subject to parental authority. So, pwede rin naman na na-reach na yung 18 years old, pero um, yun nga, yung mga may special needs, 'di ba, na subject pa rin sila to parental authority. So itong mga to, they don't have the legal capacity to give consent or enter into a contract. So aside from them, yung mga insane or demented persons also are incapacitated to give consent. But take note that the insanity must exist at the time of contracting. So kung merong raise ng issue or allegation na ay nung time na nag-enter kami sa nung time na nag-enter sila sa contract, yung isang party dyan is insane or yun nga, yun, nasa state siya na kung saan inaatake siya nung demensya niya, di ba? Kasi minsan mayroon lang mga certain time na umaatake yung ganong sakit, right? Okay. So, kailangan yung insanity must exist at the time of contracting. So kung sino yung nag-raise ng allegation na insane or demented person yung isang contracting party, at the time na nag-enter sila into contract, siya din yung merong burden of proof na talagang mag-present ng evidence na at that time is insane nga yung one of the contracting parties. Also, yung mga deaf mutes. So, exception lang dito, ba kasi usually kapag bingi ka, hindi ka talaga din makakapagsalita. Kasi nga wala ka namang naririnig na sound. So, it's very difficult for you to learn how to speak as well, di ba? Kasi tayo, natututo tayong magsalita by means of yung sounding, di ba? Kaya sa bata, phonics yung unang tinuturo para matuto siyang magsalita. So, if you cannot hear, if you're deaf, then mahirap na makapagsalita ka. Okay? Hindi mo siya matututunan. Kasi nga, wala ka namang naririnig na sound. Pero may exception to. Kapag si deaf mute knows how to write. So, pag marunong magsulat si deaf mute, then pwede siyang, meron siyang legal capacity to give consent. Because why? Obviously, if a person knows how to write, he or she also knows how to read, right? Kung marunong kang magsulat, it means marunong ka rin magbasa. So, valid yung contract if si deaf mute knows how to write because it can be inferred that the person is capable of giving intelligent consent. Okay, so ano yung reason for disqualification to those persons? Yung mga na-mention natin na unemancipated minors, insane or demented persons, and deaf mutes. So yung reason or yung rationale behind is because disqualified sila to give consent because those persons can easily be the victims of fraud as they are not capable of understanding or knowing the nature or import of their actions. So, pero pwede silang mag-enter into a contract only through their parents or guardian. So, hindi pwedeng sila talaga yung personally mag-enter. So, they are being represented by their parent or guardian. Yan. So, para dun sa mga ah, na mention natin na um, incapacitated to give consent. So, yun yung mga dapat tandaan sa consent as one of the essential requisites of the contract. So, actually, mahaba talaga yung mga discussion na to. Pero since wala naman tayo sa law school, yung mga basic ano lang tayo, principles lang na kailangan ninyong matutunan. Okay? So second is yung object certain, which is the subject matter of the contract. And so according to Civil Code Article 1347, all things which are not outside the commerce of men may be the object of a contract. Okay. So kahit merong consent, if the object is not valid, then no contract will arise. So kailangan talaga lahat to ay present or masatisfy itong mga requisites na to. So again, the object of contract is its subject matter. And this is the second essential element of a valid contract. So yung mga dapat lang nating tandaan sa object is that kailangan yung object, it must be within the commerce of men. Kasi kapag outside yan, meaning to say, wala kang rightful ownership over those things. Example dyan is yung mga public places, di ba? So, hindi pwedeng yung ibebenta mo kay buyer is yung mga sidewalks kasi outside the commerce of men yan. Wala kang ownership over that sidewalk kasi public place yan siya. Or yung mga common to all, 'di ba? Yung mga example natin, hindi mo pwedeng maging object yung araw or yung buwan or yung mga between, 'di ba? So outside the commerce of men yung mga yan. Aside from that, okay, so ang dapat tandaan para valid yung object, the thing must be within the commerce of men. Another is it must not be impossible legally or physically. So hindi pwede na yung maging object mo is, ayan, yung mga illegal drugs, okay, o kaya naman, ang object is kinontrata ka para pumatay. So, mga impossible services yan. Considered as impossible services yan. O kaya naman ah, ang agreement is makapagpatayo ka ng building in just one day. So, these are impossible, di ba? So, hindi pwedeng maging object yung mga ganong klase ng um, services or kung yung mga thing or yeah, that is outside the commerce of men. So number three, it must be in existence or capable of coming into existence. So hindi pwede na yung object ng contract ninyo is hindi pa siya nag-exist or mahirap i-determine kung mag-exist ba siya. Okay? So, kasama dyan yung mga, halimbawa, magbebenta ka ng biik, pero yung inahing baboy, hindi pa naman siya nagbubuntis, di ba? So, it must be in existence at the time that you entered into a contract or at least capable of coming into existence. Okay? So, it must be determinate or determinable without the need of a new contract between the parties. So, kailangan yung object din yun nga, kailangan determinate siya. So, dapat hindi nyo na kailangan mag-execute pa ng panibagong contract. Okay? Para lang dun sa object. Okay? So, kaya dapat, at the time na nag-enter into contract yung contracting parties, yung object nila is determinate na or determinable. Again, without the need of a new contract between the parties. So that's for the object, certain, which is the subject matter of the contract. And then lastly is the cause of the obligation, which is established. So this is the cause of contract. So when we say cause, it refers to the purpose or reason which the contracting parties have in view at the time of entering into the contract. Or stated otherwise, yung cause of contracts, it is the why of the contract. So this is the essential reason which moves the contracting parties to enter into a contract. So yung term na ginagamit sa civil code natin for cause of the contract is consideration. So kung naririnig niyo yung consideration sa mga sa mga usapan natin, so it refers to the cause of obligation. So usually it's the consent, object, and the consideration. Okay? So dito sa cause of the obligation, usually in a bilateral or reciprocal contract like yung mga purchase or yung mga contract of sale, diba? Yung cause for one party is the subject matter or object for the other and vice versa. So the distinction between the cause and object is only a matter of viewpoint. So para mas maintindihan yung sinabi ko, medyo ano siya, diba? Nakakalito siya. So magbigay tayo ng example. So halimbawa si A, binenta niya yung relo niya kay B for 2,000 pesos. So, para ma-determine natin yung object sa cost doon sa contract nila, di ba? So, sa part ni A, si A yung vendor, di ba? Siya yung nagbebenta. Yung subject matter sa viewpoint ni A is yung watch. Yun yung object na binibenta niya, di ba? The thing that is being sold to B. So, that's the subject matter or object sa viewpoint ni vendor. And yung cost niya is the price. So, sabi natin yung cost of the contract, this is the why of the contract. Ito yung reason kung bakit nag-enter sa contract yung contracting party. So, sa part ni vendor, yung reason kung ba't siya pumasok sa contract na yon is kasi nga, kailangan niya ng pera. Kailangan niya yung 2,000 pesos. That's the reason why binibenta niya yung kanyang watch. So, yung object niya is yung watch and yung cost niya is yung 2,000 pesos, which is the purchase price. Now, sa part naman ni B, siya yung vendee or siya yung buyer, yung subject matter sa part niya is yung price kasi siya yung bibili, di ba? And yung cost niya is what? So the reason why nag-enter si si buyer sa contract is gusto niya yung watch na binibenta ni A. So gusto niya na mapasa kanya yung watch. So that's the cost of vendee or the buyer. Yun yung reason niya, yun yung why niya kung bakit siya nag-enter into the contract. Kaya sinasabi that the distinction between cause and object is only a matter of viewpoint. Okay? So, I hope clear tayo dito sa essential elements or requisites of a contract. So, these are the essential requisites of a contract. And remember that absent of one of the essential requisites, no contract can arise. So, pag ang tanong sa inyo is, ano yung basis natin para masabi natin na valid yung isang contract? Ito lang yung sagot. Kailangan present lahat ng requisites as provided in Article 1318 of the Civil Code. Okay, so now let's proceed with the form, reformation, and interpretation of contract. And let's start first with the form of contract. So Article 1356 says that contracts shall be obligatory in whatever form they may have entered into, provided all the essential requisites for their validity is present. So the form of contract refers to the manner in which a contract is executed or manifested. So kaya sabi natin kanina, 'di ba? General rule, wala naman talagang nire-required na form or hindi naman necessary na in writing yung contract. So long as lahat ng essential requisites for their validity is present. And yung mga exceptions dun sa general rule na merong provision of the law na nagre-require ng particular form para maging enforceable and valid yung isang contract. Okay, so the contract may be oral, in writing, or partly oral and partly in writing. So if it is in writing, it may be in a public or private instrument. So ang difference lang naman dyan, pag public instrument, usually notarized yan. Tapos yan, naka-register yan sa mga registry of deed. Yan, kung halimbawa contract of sale yan. Okay, so pero pwede rin naman na private instrument siya, yung between the parties lang. Okay, no need na kahit hindi yan notarized, sabi nga dito, it shall be obligatory pa din. So long as all the essential requisites for their validity is present. Okay? And yon yung exception doon sa general rule. So yung exception dyan is kapag halimbawa, the form is when the law requires that a contract be in some form to be valid. So, kanina nabanggit natin, a good example is yung donation of real property. So, sa donation, merong provision sa civil code na nagsasabi na nagpe-prescribe ng requirement na kailangan yung mga donation of real property para maging valid siya, it should be in a public instrument. So, pag hindi na-satisfy itong requirement na to, then hindi magiging valid yung donation kasi there is a particular provision that requires the um, formalities no, ng donation of real property. So also kapag when the law requires that a contract be in some form to be enforceable. So ang example dyan is yung stipulation to pay interest. So kapag halimbawang nagpautang ka and then may interest yung pautang mo, hindi pwede na verbal lang, nasasabihin mo lang doon sa borrower, o may interest yan na 6%. Diba? So, kailangan para maging enforceable yung pagsingil mo ng interest, it should be in writing. So, that is also um, expressed, no? It is provided in the civil code that stipulation to pay interest must be in writing. Otherwise, no interest is due. Hindi mo mai-enforce kaya na singilin si borrower kung hindi mo na i-reduce into writing yung interest. Okay? So those are some of the exceptions dito sa general rule natin that a contract shall be obligatory in whatever form they may have entered into, provided all the essential requisites for their validity is present. Now, what if nagkaroon na kayo ng agreement, no? So, yung dalawang contracting parties, nag-agree na sila. Kaso, nung nireduce nila into writing yung napag-usapan nila, hindi nag-conform doon sa real agreement or intention of the parties. Okay, so by the way, although walang piniprescribe na form naman, di ba? Sabi dito, general rule, whatever form, basta nandoon lahat ng essential requisites, no? So, obligatory yung contracts. Pero it's safe pa din naman talaga na merong written. Kasi syempre, kapag nagkaroon ng mga aberya dyan, mahirap i-prove kapag oral lang yung naging usapan ninyo. Okay? So, kaya most of the time, pag merong mga agreement, talagang it is reduced into writing. Merong written agreement. So, yun nga. Balik ako dun sa tanong ko na what if yung napag-agrihan nila, okay, verbally or orally pa lang, nung nireduce into writing, hindi nagtugma dun sa original na intention ng parties or ah, hindi talaga yun yung napag-usapan nila. Iba yung naisulat dun sa napag-usapan nila. So, meron bang remedy doon? The answer is yes. So, pwede yun na may remedy doon. Pwedeng ayusin yun by or through what we called reformation of instruments. Yan. So, Article 1359 says that when there having been a meeting of minds of the parties to a contract, their true intention is not expressed in the instrument purporting to embody the agreement by reason of mistake, fraud, inequitable conduct, or accident, one of the parties may ask for the reformation of the instrument to the end that such true intention may be expressed. So, reformation is actually a remedy by which a written instrument is amended or rectified. So meaning to say, babaguhin yung instrument nila so as to express or conform to the real agreement or intention of the parties. Okay? But take note na yung grounds para mag-apply or ma or para sorry, yung grounds para magkaroon or mag-grant yung reformation as a remedy, kailangan ito siya, by reason of mistake, fraud, inequitable conduct, or accident. Okay? So, yan yung mga grounds na kailangang tingnan para mag-apply yung reformation. So, pag sinabi nating reformation of instrument, meaning to say, babaguhin yung instrument kasi nga hindi siya nagtugma dun sa kung ano talaga yung napag-usapan ng contracting party. So take note, hindi yung contract yung nire-reform. Kasi again, when we say contract, it refers to the meeting of minds. So hindi contract yung nire-reform, it's the instrument that represents the contract. Okay? So, I hope clear tayo doon ha. Kasi again, hindi na babaguhin kung ano yung napag-agrihan ng dalawa. Ang babaguhin lang is yung instrument na yun nga, hindi nag-conform doon sa real or true intention of the contracting um, parties. Okay, so yun yung sinasabi nating reformation. So, para mas maintindihan pa, let's have an example. Okay. Ayan, so si S sold his land to B and it was agreed that the sale will include all the improvements. So nag-agree sila, si S at saka si B, na si S, ibebenta niya yung lupa, si B naman, bibilhin niya na kasama na yung mga improvements. Meaning to say, kung magkano yung purchase price, included na doon yung mga improvements. However, the contract as signed by the parties states that the land is being sold, excluding the improvements thereon. So in this example, the remedy is reformation. 'Di ba? Kasi nga, ah, hindi siya tumugma dun sa real intention of the parties. Take note also na para mag-apply yung reformation, kailangan nagkaroon na muna ng meeting of minds between the contracting parties. So, okay naman, nagkasundo naman talaga sila dun um, sa object at saka dun sa consideration. Yun nga lang, iba yung nag-reflect doon sa kanilang contract. So, kung after masignan yun at saka napansin nung isang party na, wait lang, parang mali yung nakalagay dito na stipulation sa agreement. So, uh, pwedeng mag-apply ang reformation. So, as to express the true intention of both parties. Okay? Pero kung ang scenario, okay, i-twist natin to ng konti. So, pero kung ang scenario dito is si S, binenta niya yung land kay B, excluding all the improvements. Tapos si B naman, binili niya nag-agree siya na bilhin yung land, including all the improvements. So, in that scenario, walang meeting of minds. So, dahil walang meeting of minds, reformation will not apply. Kasi kahit anong reform yung gawin nila, kahit anong amend yung gawin nila, hindi nila ma-express yung real intention of the parties kasi nga hindi naman nag-meet yung mind nila. 'Di ba? Si S excluding the improvement, si B naman including the improvement. So, kaya parang nonsense, 'di ba, na i-reform pa nila yung instrument kasi hindi rin naman may express ng instrument yung kanilang real intention. So take note na it is important na para mag-apply yung reformation, kailangan there has been a meeting of minds between the parties. Okay? So let's see kung in order for reformation, in order that the reformation may be availed of as a remedy, ito yung mga requisites. So these requisites must be present. Yan. First, there is a valid contract. Ito yung sinasabi ko kanina. So when we say there is a valid contract, meaning to say there is a meeting of minds between the parties. Okay, so yung mga essential elements are present. Okay, and then number two, the written instrument does not express or conform to the true agreement or intention of the parties. So ayan na. So iba yung napag-usapan nila doon sa kanilang valid contract as to the written instrument. Okay, na 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 na, na draft, 'di ba? Or napirmahan ng both parties. So number 3, the failure to express the true intention is due to mistake, fraud, inequitable conduct, or accident. So ito ay self-explanatory naman. Kaya yung mistake, fraud, na-discuss na natin yun doon sa ibang video natin, or accident. So pag sinabi natin inequitable conduct, it means doing acts or omitting to do acts which the court finds to be unconscionable. Example, yung pag-take advantage ng isang party sa pagiging illiterate ng another party. Okay. So, yung example kanina na kung halimbawang si S, binenta niya yung land kay B, tapos ang agreement nila is uh, walang right to repurchase. I think meron tayong example dito mamaya na ipe-present. Okay, let's see. Okay, wala. Ayan, so halimbawa si S, okay, so nagbenta siya ng land kay B, tapos doon sa agreement nila, ang sinasabi ni S is, bebenta ko sa iyo to, pero with a right to repurchase after 5 years. So, yun yung agreement. Nag-agree naman si P na after 5 years, after niyang mabili yung property, 5 years after niyang mabili, merong right si S na i-repurchase yung property. Pero nung ginawa na yung written instrument, nung draft na nila, ang pinalabas ni B, deed of absolute sale siya. And since itong si S is illiterate siya, tapos yung instrument is in English, 'di ba? So sabi lang ni B kay S, ito na yung agreement natin, kung ano yung napag-usapan natin, ito yung nakalagay dito sa kontrata. So, yun, mga inequitable conduct yun. Kasi parang nag-take advantage lang si B sa pagiging illiterate ni S. So, because of that, hindi na-express yung true intention, then pwedeng mag-apply ang reformation. Okay? And then, number 4, the facts of upon which relief by way of reformation of the instrument is sought are put in issue by the pleading. So again, itong reformation, kailangan i-file to sa court. So hindi pwedeng ang mag-decide lang na i-reform yung contract nila is yung contracting party. So para magkaroon talaga, mag-take effect siya at masettle kasi 'di ba? Usually, ano yan, may magre-raise talaga dyan. Kung halimbawang iba yung naka-express doon sa written instrument based doon sa napag-usapan, syempre, kailangan i-file mo yan sa court. Kasi pag hindi mo yan i-file sa court, remember, valid yung contract, di ba? So, mare-required ka, mako-compel ka na i-follow kung ano yung mga nandoon sa kontrata na pinirmahan ninyong dalawa. Okay? So, ngayon, pag hindi mo i-fulfill yung mga obligation na nakastipulate doon sa contract, pwede kang ma-breach of contract, di ba? At pwedeng mag-claim ng damages sa'yo yung isang party. So, para ma-reform siya, kung hindi naman talaga yun yung real intention ng both parties, dapat i-file siya sa court. Okay, so ngayon, pag magpa-file ka, usually, magsasubmit ka talaga ng pleadings dyan. Yung pleadings, ito yung parang pinaka-narrative mo na nandoon yung mga cause of action mo, yung salaysay mo. So, kailangan kasama doon yung iyong prayer na mag-grant ka ng relief of reformation. Okay, mag-grant ka ng remedy of reformation. Kasi kung ano lang yung mga nilagay mo dun sa pleadings mo, yung prayer mo, ito yung parang pinaka-request mo na gusto mong i-grant ng court. So kung hindi mo siya naisama dyan, it will not be considered by the court as well. Kaya napaka-importante na mailagay mo doon lahat, no? Yung prayer mo, tsaka yung mga cause of action, mga basis mo. Okay? Para ma-weigh ng maigi ng court and hindi ma-dismiss yung um, case na pina-file mo. Okay, so that's for number 4. Kailangan nandun siya sa pleadings. Okay, yung request mo na i-grant ka ng remedy of reformation. And then number 5, there is a clear and convincing evidence of the mistake, fraud, inequitable conduct, or accident. So the rule is, kung sino yung nagre-raise ng issue or ng allegation na yung contract does not reflect the true intention of the parties, siya din yung merong burden to prove by clear and convincing evidence na yung reason kung bakit hindi nag-conform yung written instrument nila is by reason of mistake, fraud, inequitable conduct, or accident. Okay, so bigay tayo ng mga scenarios kung saan mag apply yung reformation. So for example, si S, binenta niya yung 10 hectares niya kay B. Okay, yun yung agreement nila on a certain amount of money or sum of money. Okay, so ngayon, through the mistake of the clerk, yung deed of sale na i-print, nakalagay 1 hectare lang. So in that case, hindi naman yun, no? Ang reason kung bakit hindi na-express yung true intention of the parties is by mistake, diba? So reformation will apply. Kasi in the first place, nagkaroon naman na ng meeting of minds. Nagkaroon naman na ng valid contract, okay, sa kanilang dalawa. Hindi lang nag-conform doon sa written instrument. So both of them, both parties may ask for reformation. Okay? So another example, sa fraud naman at saka sa inequitable conduct. So yun, kanina yung binigay natin na example yung um, merong nag-take advantage yung isang party sa pagiging illiterate ng another party. So kaya yun nga, parang may fraud na doon at the same time, or it can also be considered as an inequitable conduct kasi merong pagti-take advantage. And then merong element of deceiving another party or yun nga, fraud siya. So doon sa example na binigay natin na yung kanina, kung si S yung nagbenta at sabi niya, bibenta ko sa'yo to with a right of repurchase after 5 years, sa si B, ang ginawa niya, nagpapirma siya ng kasunduan ng contract, pero ang nilagay niya doon is actually it's a deed of sale, absolute sale, meaning to say hindi nasunod doon yung usapan nila na merong right si S na i-repurchase yung um, 10 hectares after 5 years. So in that scenario, ang pwede lang mag-asang reformation ay si S. Hindi pwedeng mag-asang reformation si B kasi siya yung nag-employ ng fraud. Okay. So, take note also na sa reformation, itong reformation, it does not apply to those agreements which are not written. Kaya nga pinag-uusapan natin dito is instrument. Pag sinabi nating instrument, mga written agreements talaga yan. So, hindi mag apply ang reformation sa mga oral agreements. Kasi paano mo nga naman i-reform yung mga usapan lang, diba? Mahirap i-reform yun. So, mag apply lang ang reformation sa written agreements and not to oral agreements. Pero meron din namang mga contracts na although written siya pero hindi siya pwedeng i-reform. Example dyan is yung mga will. Yan, last will and testament. Kasi 'di ba yung testator dyan, yung mga last will and testament, magti-take effect yan once na namatay na yung testator or yung nagsulat, gumawa nung last will and testament. So, syempre, kung wala na yung testator, paano mo pa i-reform yan? And binibigyan naman ng respect talaga yun kasi parang yun yung pinaka-wish ng testator na kung paano niya gustong ma-manage yung mga estate or yung mga ari-arian na meron siya. Okay? So, yung mga case ng will, hindi mag apply dyan ang reformation. Okay? Okay, so that's for the reformation of instrument. Again ha, ang nire-reform is not the contract but the instrument. So now let's go to the interpretation of contracts. So Article 1370 provides that if the terms of a contract are clear and leave no doubt upon the intention of the contracting parties, the literal meaning of its stipulation shall control. If the words appear to be contrary to the evident intention of the parties, the latter shall prevail over the former. So when we say interpretation of contract, it refers to the determination of the meaning of the terms or word used by the parties in their conduct. Okay? So, yung pagdedetermine ng intent of the parties, usually, court ang nag interpret niyan. Kasi nga, syempre, yung contracting parties, okay, dahil nga hindi sila magkasundo sa interpretation o kaya naman ambiguous, 'di ba? Hindi clear, vague mga yung stipulation dun sa contract or yung mga terms and conditions. So, magkaiba sila ng interpretation. So, hindi talaga pwede na sila sa kanila mo lang iasa yung interpretation para ma-resolve nila. So, kung hindi na magkasundo yung dalawang parties, nagkakaroon na sila ng dispute dahil magkaiba sila ng interpretation at nape-prevent yung application or para ma-enforce yung contract, then the court will intervene. So, the interpretation is left to the court to resolve the ambiguity. Okay? Yung mga language or yung terms doon sa contract. So, i-distinguish natin si interpretation versus reformation. So, again, pag sinabi nating interpretation, it is the act of making intelligible that was not before understood, ambiguous, or not obvious. So, interpretation is the method by which the meaning of the language is ascertained. And when we say reformation, okay, reformation is the remedy, okay, in equity by means of which a written instrument is made or construed so as to express or conform the real intention of the parties. So again, in granting reformation, hindi naman hindi gumagawa ng panibagong contract yung parties or hindi rin hindi babaguhin ni um, court, okay, yung contract. Kasi nga, when we say contract, it refers to the meeting of minds. So, established na yan. Ang i-reform lang is yung instrument para ma-perpetuate yung real contract or yung real intention or agreement ng dalawang parties, kung ano talaga yung napag-usapan nila. So, importante na ma-distinguish natin yung interpretation and reformation kasi both, di ba, kailangan mo ding i-file ng action yung interpretation sa court. Okay? Para i-interpret ng court yan kung merong ambiguity dun sa contract. So, kailangan mag-file ka ng action, di ba? So, dapat ah, clear sa atin kung ano yung difference between interpretation and reformation para alam din natin yung appropriate action or yung case na ipa-file natin sa court, whether ang kailangan nyo lang is yung interpretation of the contract or the reformation of the instrument. Okay? So, going back to Article 1370, ayan, di ba? So, general rule, okay, if the terms of a contract are clear and unequivocal, meaning to say it leaves no doubt or it is not ambiguous, it is not vague, then the parties should fulfill their stipulations according to its literal sense as they appear on the face of the contract. So kung malinaw naman, hindi kailangan ng interpretation. And the words used in their stipulation should be given natural and ordinary meaning unless a technical meaning was intended. So medyo challenging din talaga yung sa interpretation ng contracts kasi 'di ba? Pansin niyo naman may mga legal terms talaga na iba yung meaning niya dun sa literal lang or common na meaning ng isang word. Like halimbawa dun sa usapan natin ng obligation, 'di ba? So yung object iba yung meaning niya, it refers pala to the prestation. So, yung mga ganun. So, pero kung yung import naman ng meaning is yung import ng word is yung literal niya talaga na meaning or yung ordinary meaning niya, then, kailangan i-fulfill kung ano yung nasa stipulation doon based on its literal meaning din. Okay? Pero kung halimbawang merong contradiction. Ito na yung second paragraph niya, di ba? Sabi dito, so this is the general rule. Kung clear naman, then yung interpretation mo ng contract is yung literal meaning ng stipulation. Okay, ordinary meaning ng mga words na nandoon. Pero if the words appear to be contrary to the evident intention of the parties, the latter shall prevail over the former. So, para mas maintindihan natin tong last paragraph, let's have an example. Ayan. So, si A entered into a contract, whole contract of lease with B whereby A leases car to B. Contract of lease, diba? So, nagpaparenta lang. So, it is stipulated that B shall pay 100,000 pesos upon signing of the contract and 500 pesos by way of rental on or before the 5th day of every month. And that at the end of 1 year, B would become the absolute owner of the car. The contract fixed the value of the car to be 160,000 pesos. So, itong example na to, medyo magulo siya, di ba? Merong ambiguity dito sa stipulation nila. Kasi take note, yung contract is called contract of lease. And yet, meron silang stipulation dito that at the end of 1 year, B would become the absolute owner of the car. So, paano nagkaroon ng stipulation na si B yung magiging absolute owner of the car, contract of lease to. So, sa lease, nagpaparenta ka lang naman, di ba? So, hindi ka nagtatransfer ng ownership. Pero dito, merong sinasabi na magiging absolute owner ng car si B. So, this example, although their contract is called a contract of lease, their real intention based on this stipulation is not really a lease of car, but a sale in installment. Hindi siya lease, sale siya based on their stipulation. So, yun nga yung ating ano dito, yun yung parang pinaka-contradictory na lease and yet we will become the absolute owner. So ngayon, ano yung mag-govern dyan? Yung pangalan ba ng contract nila, which is contract of lease, or yung intention? So basically, sabi dito sa second paragraph of Article 1370, if the words appear to be contrary to the evident intention of the parties, the latter means the intention of the parties shall prevail over the former, or the words appear to be contrary, okay, to the evident intention. So kahit na contract of lease to, mas may way pa rin yung intention talaga ng parties. And based on their stipulation, the intention is really a sale, not a lease. So ang mag-govern dito is yung intention and not the name of the contract na contract of lease siya. Okay? So, ganun isettle, no? Yung contradiction dito sa example na to. Okay? So, to reiterate, nagkakaroon lang ng challenge sa interpretation of the contracts kapag merong mga ambiguity. And it is the duty of the court to determine the true intention of the parties. Okay? So, that is for the interpretation of contracts. And this covers the first part of our discussion on contract. So the continuation will be on another video. Thank you, class, and have a blessed day ahead.